Thank you very much, Reichart, for your excellent outlook on 2021. I think we are, I also would like to thank the other speakers for the excellent contributions. I think they gave an excellent insight in the many features of the release 20/11, and I think in combination with which Reichart has indicated the features for 2021. I think we will have future good basis to have a widespread application of AUTOSAR, not only the classic platform, but as I've mentioned before, the adaptive platform will probably have the same success story like the classic platform. Now we are coming to the question and answer section, and we received already some questions from the audience. But before I come to the questions from the audience, I would like to ask Reichart. You mentioned the importance of standardization, even in times where some companies are thinking about more proprietary solutions. And what interests me, and I think probably some people in the audience, is what a role does standardization play when it comes to certification of systems, when it comes to legal cases? So could standardization not be a good help to protect even the company interests if we have, let's say, a common approach which is based on the state of the art?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Günter. Also maybe the second part of the question comes to the direction of you do the certification usually based on a product, and when it comes to the product, you always have to argue the latest state-of-the-art standards. And it's the easiest way is to say we did it because of norms or regulatory standardizations, but it's much easier to go for a standard which is already implemented among a community such as AUTOSAR. So with the methodology and other perspectives, with the pre-certification by several suppliers, it gives for safety and security a big impact to the product certifications. That's the background for why we do that. And the first part of the question, of course, it's a very tricky one, because we can just draw a picture for now, and now we can say that suppliers and OEMs are really having good processes in place to tackle the way we are building cars at the moment. But as you see that the cars are changing and also the technologies, we need to reshape, I think, our work models for the future. And sanitization has, on platform level, system level, and integration level, a huge impact.
Oh, thank you very much, Reichart, for the answer. Now I have a very easy one for you. Someone asked, will the slides which we have shown during our session, will they be provided afterwards?
Yes, that's easy. So AUTOSAR.org, we will provide it to the ones who registered today. And of course, it's in the public domain. So we will share the link maybe with the channels we have.
Okay, so next one is going to you. Is AUTOSAR partnership essential for an organization to receive an AUTOSAR software component from a vendor? You have talked about the license models and...
Yes. So in general, as I said, there is this exploitation. So we distinguish between commercial exploitation. As soon as you create that as part of a commercial product, the exploitation license is needed. And that's why everything that goes to a commercial exploitation, it's helpful to be AUTOSAR partner.
So the next question, I think, let me see. Why AUTOSAR has not standardized more popular peripherals like UART, I2C, serial port, etc. in MCall? I think, Reichart, it goes again to you.
So I can answer, but I don't want to talk all the time. We can also share the question. So if anybody would like it. Yeah. So up to you.
Jennifer, would you like to answer?
I think Manfred is the right one for that one, to be honest.
Manfred,
As a
okay.
long-standing member of the communication group.
So, Manfred, it's your floor.
Yeah, thank you for the question. A little bit, I give you a little bit insight. All the protocols are specified in the working group IVC, and just that you get an idea, the IVC working group currently has more than 50 documents to handle. You see everything is, or many functionality is related to communication. And so much work is to do, but at least we have specified, for example, SPI. For SPI, we have dedicated drivers for that, driver specification. And of course, if there's the need to specify even UART or other protocols, we can, of course, also put it on the list and invite you also to join the AUTOSAR consortium if you want, and we would appreciate your input here. And of course, in future releases, we can also think about standardize other protocols next to SPI, for example.
Okay, thank you. Next one goes to Rinat, unfortunately again. Could you please give an overview of concepts for release 21-11?
It's good to have Manfred in the back. Thanks. And we have 21-11, so I can pronounce an AOC, as I mentioned before in March. We would like to be more confident on the quality we bring into 21-11 to say this concept or that. We have something in the backlog for safety, security, and several other topics. So the ones who are participating in the consortium knows the magic that pops up for us, and we will communicate them, I think, in the AOC in next year.
Oh, thank you, Rinat. Now you can relax a little bit, since the next question goes to Huzaifa. The question is related to deterministic sync. How could you assure the goal of safety software analysis work, product related data flow assurance and control flow in adaptive platform?
Okay, that's a good question. So firstly, if you're referring to the concept that I presented, it goes more in the direction of time determinism. And we have the other side, which is the data determinism. And the concept directly doesn't say about it, but I can refer you where you can find more about it. It's actually the SWS execution management, which I also referred in my concept presentation. Explicitly, chapter 7.6 mentions deterministic execution, and it has further two subchapters, one for time determinism, one for data determinism. And your question is more in the direction of data determinism, and there we've got a software lockstep idea which you can read. That's one part. The other part is then the control flow. That is actually what PHM is providing, platform health management, in the form of logical supervision. And this you can find in the ASWS health monitoring. So you'll find subchapters about logical supervisions, and they go in the direction of control flow then.
Oh, thank you, Huzaifa. The next question also goes to you. How does the AUTOSAR RS safety document relate to the software architecture design in ISO 26262? If it is coupled, it will also be available for classic platform?
Okay, again, a very good question. So I would start off with the explanatory safety overview that we have currently and the RS safety. They started off as adaptive platform documents and have currently in this release a lot of adaptive platform context. And yes, we took a very similar approach to ISO 262. So if you look at the contents of explanatory safety overview, we start with, just in context of adaptive AUTOSAR, taking the architecture itself as a safety element out of context. Then we've got a chapter about assumptions and use cases, after which we've got then system description, then hazard analysis, then safety goals, and functional safety concept. Then the scope of explanatory safety overview stops, and we move to R safety, which is now concretely giving safety requirements towards adaptive AUTOSAR. They start, of course, with or firstly trace to the safety goals that were described in explanatory safety overview, and give firstly functional safety requirements, which are quite generic. They might be towards classic platform or adaptive platform. We don't, of course, talk about the exact function cluster or the exact module that would be implementing it. After which we've got then a chapter for technical safety requirement. Currently the one from classic platform is empty, and we hope that we will fill it for the next release, 21-11. But the one from adaptive platform has technical safety requirements towards functional safety, towards function clusters. And this is how basically it all fits together with ISO 262.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you. And the next question goes to Jennifer. In AUTOSAR Classic, splitting by containerization, I assume that change management is not applicable. Only defect management is applicable to concept. Is it true?
Okay, let me try to answer that question. So it is true that currently there's a lot of restrictions as to what you can replace in classic AUTOSAR with this splitting into clusters. So you can only update a cluster which already existed before. You cannot dynamically add a new one. That doesn't work. And we also have a lot of boundary conditions what cannot be changed on especially the outside interfaces and service usages here. So yes, probably the primarily use case is to have defect management to replace something where there was something broken. You can also probably update some inner workings of that one, but yes, there are a lot of restrictions in that one, so it's not as flexible as the adaptive AUTOSAR, and I think that's also not the use case here.
Okay, thank you. I think also the next question is probably related to you. What were the criteria to choose Hawkbit, not obtain for OMA DM as a reference backend for update?
I'd have to talk to the respective work group to that one. To be honest, I know they also looked at Uptane. I'm not sure if they looked at OMA DM, but I'm not right now sure why they chose Hawkbit, unless Adrian knows it because it's his colleague who was involved. But sorry, I would have to take that back.
Good.
I don't know the details either. So, but I think all were evaluated, and in the end, you can still implement Uptane or OMA DM and be compatible with what AUTOSAR specified.
Okay, thank you. So next question is, let's see who can answer it. How does adaptive AUTOSAR position itself with respect to ROS2 in areas of ARA.com, execution management, state management, platform health management, security, log and trace? Who wants to answer it? I think each one of you can give a comment since it involves many issues. Shall I repeat it? How does
Yes,
adaptive AUTOSAR position itself with respect to ROS2 in areas of ARA.com, execution management, state management, platform health management, security, log and trace?
So I think also to give the bridge a little bit, the DDS protocol is used by ROS2 as a second network binding with ARA.com. And there is already a compatibility to ROS2 platforms intended to have. And of course, the simulation framework is important for areas like automated driving. And to have that in the same platform integrated, I think that's a future important goal for us.
Okay. Anyone else wants to comment? No.
And I can also say a couple of words from security side. Actually, we started a concept development to align with DDS security features and to be able to incorporate them in our AUTOSAR framework. we didn't manage for this release, but we are still working on this topic, and I hope for one of the next releases we will have a concept already released for this part.
Okay. No, thank you very much. And the next question goes to Huzaifa. As for deterministic think, does it rely on the LET feature mentioned in time analysis specification?
I'm not sure about that. Would have to look at a bit deeper in the concept. But it definitely uses time sync of the AUTOSAR. Whether it's specifically the LET feature, I can't say for now.
Okay. So probably the person who has asked for it probably can later on in the networking area establish a further discussion with you, and probably you can clarify it after our session today.
I would also have to look it up, and I can probably also share some content in that context, and yeah.
So thank you. Then we have the next question. Does AUTOSAR plan to standardize on a concept for an API for the described connections to cloud services? Rinat, I think you can answer it.
Yeah, so for cloud services, I think there is a step in between, because Adaptive already handles some service-oriented approaches and architectures. The cloud solutions today have this clear demand to describe with a lean API and IDL the service orientation. And I think from methodology perspective, there is a way to go to attach that. And then the second question is, I think, how the protocols are interacting with several cloud directions, but also to vehicle to X interaction. We don't see at the moment a strong standardization possibility within the software platforms, because there are several solutions.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, does AUTOSAR develop out-car communication specifications such as vehicle to X, cloud communication, and so on? So it's very similar. I think also, Rinat, you can answer it.
Okay, but also the others, we can also discuss on that a little bit. You can maybe put it like this with the hand and then also say something. But I think it's similar to the question before. The V2X is an important thing when we talk about automated driving higher than level 2B. It comes together with a lot of infrastructure changes that are demanded for the infrastructure of our cars. And this takes time, and the soon we see clear possibilities for platforms to standardize that, I think there will be demands by the OEMs.
From my side also.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, especially vehicle to X communication, as you have seen on several slides in the presentations right now, you see that we already have in focus the back-end communication to cloud services, or also, of course, vehicle to X. The IVC working group already worked on this some years ago. There's a little bit, let's say, difficulty to integrate it in the AUTOSAR architecture, because the vehicle to X has a little bit different layering, but we are basically working on vehicle to X for China and also for the rest of the world. So
okay.
Have it in mind.
Okay, so we work already on it. So what is the status of the discussion about adaptive diagnostics, service versus API, especially which status of that is realized and usable in the demonstrator? I think, don't want to ask all the time, Rinat. So Jennifer, probably you can say a word on it.
I can certainly say a word to the demonstrator status. So currently that is one of the major points we are working on. So we expect that with the next release, you will see a massive improvement there. Currently, it's not in such good shape, unfortunately. So for 21-11, it is our target to have that usable in the demonstrator.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else who want to comment on it? No, I think it's already covered. Is there any plan to support CXPI based on ISO 27794, which is initially developed by Denso? Since Jennifer, you are from Denso and you are within AUTOSAR,
Yes.
probably you know it perfectly.
So currently it is not part of the AUTOSAR standard, and it will depend also on my own company's motivation to bring it in, or on JASPAR, which I mentioned before, the Japan Automotive Initiative, to bring it into AUTOSAR. I will take it back to my own company. Of course, AUTOSAR won't be opposed to bringing this in. So I'll take it back if we want to push this into AUTOSAR.
Okay, so thank you. Then the next question goes, let me see, to Jennifer. If I'm starting SOP 2024 project in automated driving, which adaptive AUTOSAR implementation should I take? Which is most complete, developer friendly? Can also be, I think, answered to some part by Reichart.
The latest one.
So
we've made massive improvements. We've made massive improvements, so take this one. Maybe Reichart has a different opinion, but this is what be my recommendation. I think this is also Reichard's target to use this one.
So it's good. Thanks, Jennifer. I think also being with the latest one, it's always good in the software platform. But as we are already including new features still to adaptive and trying to be better in quality, I think to follow this track and also to be part of this work is a crucial thing for the whole community.
Thank you. The next question goes to Huzaifa. Restricted access to SOA, is this mostly or only applicable for safety applications?
Mm-hmm. So I understand this question in two contexts. One is the service-oriented architecture itself. That is not purely a safety thing. It is a design decision and RCOM implementation or realization with respect to skeleton proxies. That is basically all in this context. The restriction, if I understood that correctly, would probably be more from security-driven perspective, whether such a feature should be restricted or not with respect to the access. And I think identity and access management would have a restriction on RCOM and only allow certain applications. And those applications must not only be safety, they might be even more than that. Maybe Adrian can put a bit more context to this. Or is it sufficient to what I said?
Adrian, do you want to comment?
So on the restricted to the restricted access to service-oriented communication, right?
Yeah.
So the identity and access management allows the restriction to restrict the access to service-oriented communication on a platform and on a network level between different ECUs.
Okay, thank you. Since there is a question, I think it's a question which relates to a person who is member of the SC. So Reichart, you probably should answer it. There is no AUTOSAR membership for independent expert, single person, startup, etc. Do you have any plan for supporting, extending such membership?
I must correct here a little bit. So there is a subscriber partnership which can be looked up also in the overview on our homepage of different partnership types, where an individual person can apply for participating. And yeah, so this is somehow already tackled and handled.
Okay, I think that's something which we can later on even discuss in the networking area. If somebody is interested to join the AUTOSAR community, we have a special section on explaining the partnership roles and establishing some connections to people who are interested to join AUTOSAR. Then we have a next question to Adrian. Is there any plan to support ISO 21434 in classic platform? If yes, how?
Yeah, so okay, this is quite a complex question. So first of all, I think we need to understand that ISO 21434, it's a standardization on process development level, while in AUTOSAR we do standardization on product level. So of course, the partners that are contributing in AUTOSAR are already following the ISO 21434. So of course, when we provide the specification, we already cover some parts of the product development phase that is covered by AUTOSAR. For example, we do have we do define cybersecurity goals and we do a threat analysis and so on. Of course, we cannot do all the parts. We cannot make an impact analysis, for example, in a TARA approach, because the impact might be different from one OEM to another or from one use case to another. But as I mentioned, we are following all the companies that are providing support for AUTOSAR specification are already following the standards. And this is how we interact with ISO 21434.
Oh, thank you, Adrian. So the next question is, going forward, car is also a part of the Internet of Things, and IoT has protocols defined and how AUTOSAR would bridge this gap. I think it's relating much to our future strategy. So, Rinat, probably you can answer it.
Yeah, of course. So everybody would like to give this vision. So we cannot look to the future, but you're right. We're part of AOT, part of the huge environment, and we are part of also standardization organizations that are broader than AUTOSAR. And that's why we will catch up with all ISO, IEEE, and other standards that are really having the demands to bring the industrialization to the cars. And I'm just mentioning some of the protocols. So there's some usage of joiner, of MQTT, of several, I think, different protocols for this purpose. And there will be a step to support them, especially with adaptive.
Okay, thank you. So next question is, many communication buses used frequently in vehicles, but not included in AUTOSAR standards, e.g. CENT, IEC. Does any support plan in the following release version exist? Who can answer this one? I think, Renat, you again.
So these standards are not on the roadmap. We try to really bring the people or the companies together to AUTOSAR to be compliant on bus level, because this is where our cars will crash if you're not applying the standards that are used among the cars.
Mm-hmm. So the next question is, will you provide minutes related to this Q&A session? So is there any documentation on the questions and answers which we gave? Rinat, have you?
Yeah, we can formulate some answers also to make it readable, I think, in the afterwards, and yeah, share that with you with the slides as well. Because the questions are very good, and I even think that you're digging deeper as it was intended, and it's very great because we will have that as well in the networking sessions now. And yeah, we will try to summarize the questions and give technical-wise good answers to this.
Okay, so that's, I think, very good for the audience, and you will have then a good documentation of the discussion which we have here. The next question goes to both Jennifer and Rinat. Clarification on my adaptive implementation question, which AUTOSAR version to use for an SOP 2024 from before. I meant implementation, vector, ethos, and not specification.
That's easy to answer. AUTOSAR does not give any recommendations which vendor to use. So you will have to figure that one out for yourself. I'm sure the salespeople of these companies will be happy to help you in your decision, but we're not giving any recommendations on this one for sure.
Yes, the approach is, thanks, Jennifer, that I don't have to say that. So the approach is we come together to what we can standardize in the standard, bring that out to the release, and everybody can enjoy the things we bring in and make it usable inside of their perspective, make a timeline out of that, and going the next step with liability issues and other topics.
It's the same with the basic software stack, which you can have from different companies, and we don't give any recommendation which one to take.
That's right.
So next question is, have you ever considered releasing a demonstrator of classic platform? This might leveraging some existing open source implementation. Are there any plans existing? Any discussions, Rinat?
This is also a decision that is made by companies, not by the standard.
Okay. Why is it not allowed to implement adaptive AUTOSAR as open source implementation? This would be truly an open model and opens the door for new mobility players.
So
it is at the moment
implement.
Yeah.
Who's? Okay, sorry. It is, of course, open in the AUTOSAR organization. Have to go deeper a little bit on the license side. So there is, in the license, we talk about AUTOSAR work. AUTOSAR work is everything that's part of the specification in this brackets you might know in the specification, but also the AUTOSAR demonstrator is part of the AUTOSAR work, which we release. And the license is covering as well the part of the demonstrator. So that's why we would like to really have that in a good quality in hand and part of the community.
Well, thank you. Next question is again a question relating to the partnership role subscriber. So the one person in the audience asks, the subscriber membership is not open for cooperation in working groups. Is there any plan to extend it to be able to join working group activities?
So we can talk about that as well in the networking session. So what's the intention here? I just can invite here, but the subscriber, as you say, is right now a hearing or a reading person, and can be done with individuals. Yeah, as it's planned for now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Then the next question is, what is the official release status of adaptive platform? Is it still draft? Answer by TM AP. There is
so we don't. Yeah, maybe.
You read it? You have read it already?
Yes, so I can get it.
Okay.
So we don't have a status per release. We have a status per specification item. I think that's also what Nadim is writing here. So basically, each specification item within our many specs has a life cycle draft, which means that we're not guaranteeing right now that this is stable and valid, where we give guarantees that this is stable, usable, and we're not going to change it backwards incompatibly. So we have already achieved a certain amount of valid spec items in adaptive platform, and as Rinat I think already mentioned in his talk, we are targeting a much higher percentage of valid spec items for the upcoming release. So yeah, the answer is no, it's not draft because there is no life cycle for the entire adaptive platform. But yes, a large percentage of the spec items are still draft, and it is one of our primary objectives for the next release to make more of that valid.
Thank you. So next question is, does adaptive platform has any plans to support CAN communication? Reichart.
No, I will give this to Manfred because he's born for this. I think he's good in it.
Yeah, thank you for these questions. The demand of having support next to service-oriented communication, also to support signal-based communication, is already there. So we see it, and therefore we, in general, have the idea to have this service to signal mapping. So it's, I would say it's a general support, the signal service mapping, it's called like this, to also then enable the adaptive platform. Regarding the current status, maybe because we have so many topics on the table, maybe I can forward this question to a colleague if you have further details. But the summary is, yes, we also think about signal to service mapping for adaptive.
Thank you. Then the next question is, where can we find the explanatory document for usage of AUTOSAR runtime interface, AUTOSAR classic platform and adaptive platform? I think, Jennifer, you can answer it.
So it should be part of the release documents, but for the specific link, I would have to do that offline to hunt it down.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you. So person should be in contact with you to clarify where to find it. So next question is, IDS manager and reporter will transmit security-related events to backend system. Has the interface for external communication been already defined in AUTOSAR? So our security expert can answer it.
Yeah, so the communication to the backend side, it's not standardized, and the type of communication protocol that you might have with your backend may depend on the solution you deployed in your security operations center. So we focus on standardizing the protocol for transmission of security events in the vehicle network, because there we really have an issue of interoperability between different ECUs that you can receive from different OEMs. While when you address the communication to the backend, basically you have to take care of the transmission protocol to the backend, maybe on one single ECU that will report to the backend. Yeah. So we didn't standardize yet. It's not in the scope so far. But if you have any suggestions, yeah, please contact us.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Thank you. So we have still some questions. Is there any change in the ARTI, ARR-XML representation with this AUTOSAR release? I think who can answer it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I've seen as the history, and with this I'll also answer the previous question where we can find this document. I've just opened it in parallel, and so the only changes that are quite evident on the change history are that there is an introduction to the example implementation and configuration updates. And where you can find it actually is in this release R20-11. There is one sub folder called SWArc, and there's this explanatory document, classic platform ARTI.
Okay. Hussein, yeah, somebody wants
to add something else. To add also, there is in every document a change history and change documentation, so you can track down what changes are related to any specific topic.
Okay, that's next question also goes to Huzaifa. What recommendation on open software certification with respect to safety?
This is a tricky question. I mean, this is a question that we ask ourselves and try to evaluate with respect to POSIX. If that's the idea, if you're talking in that direction, I think open source standards are basically not so easy to certify for safety because there are times poor documentation, poor architecture, etc. But this doesn't now the newer minds of functional safety engineering would tell you that doesn't forbid you to probably make a certification out of it. It's just a lot of effort, and if someone is willing to put in that effort, then why not? But is there any recommendation document, etc., that could give you exactly what you need to do apart from ISO 26262? I don't think there's much. So you really need to put in the effort, go to ISO 26262 and try to have your open source product completely then aligned with those requirements.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe because it also comes to a direction of processes. You can change the standard, or you can change your implementation of it. And I also we should also ask ourselves if the ISO standard 26262 is capable to handle this topic at the moment.
Next question is, several partners have considered productionizing AP demonstrator but decided against because of too low quality of it. This is opposite to answer before on OSS. Yeah, do you want to comment?
Yes, sure. So the APD, of course, we had the approach that it feels a little bit from a more quality perspective for some years. But on the other side, we see also a lot of suppliers really working on the APD on own products. So that's really helpful with a quality approach. So we concentrate with the APD on the validation, because the sooner we bring in a technology, we need to validate it. That's the pre-track. If we stop there and say, from there on, we are pretty sure it's working, please continue with your approach in your product relation. It fits to the classic platform approach as well, and helps us also with in collaboration.
Okay, next question is yeah, okay, you want to add something?
Just wanted to, I think one of the original question was here why you can't put adaptive AUTOSAR demonstrator code under an open source license. And basically it's because this open source license would then violate the AUTOSAR license. So to use AUTOSAR commercially, you need to be an AUTOSAR partner. If you then make an open source project and stick an open source license file in there, then people who are not aware of this would assume they can use this maybe for commercial production and would not intentionally violate the AUTOSAR license. So we have some license issues here, actually.
I think it was an important point. Yeah. One question is, I think it goes to Manfred. How much of throughput can adaptive handle? Car equipped for AD generates about 8 gigabytes.
Well, I would say this question is more a question to the realization of the standard. Of course, we have the demonstrator, but mainly, of course, we are focusing on the specification. So I would say this is more an hardware-related issue. So the AUTOSAR ourselves does not, let's say, has any limits about throughputs or so.
Okay, so we have to come to an end quite soon. So one last question. Do you plan to support Ken XL with upcoming AUTOSAR releases? I think you can answer it as well, Manfred.
Yes, thank you for this question also. So due to the layered architecture of classic AUTOSAR, it's quite straightforward to add additional buses from the automotive world. So also this is also true for Ken XL. And yes, I'm very optimistic that we will support it in one of the upcoming AUTOSAR releases.
Thank you. And I received a latest question here. Which working group is responsible for concepts on inter-platform communication topics?
Well, maybe I can take this question also. So we have in AUTOSAR the working group A, it's called, so the architecture working group, and these have is somehow divided into the classic world and adaptive, but of course they talk to each other. For AUTOSAR, it is important that we have or we ensure the interoperability between adaptive and the classic world. So therefore we have the so-called foundation, which specify all platform independent protocols. So to answer the question, these let's say concepts are then also, let's say, the architects will have a look on it. But this is true basically to all of the concepts that we double check the impact to the platforms.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are at the end of this session. I would ask the audience for further questions to join our networking area. You can bring in your questions in the networking area, even your comments. I think we otherwise would extend too long this session. So I would like to thank all experts and speakers who have contributed to the success of this release event. Also all the people in the background who helped to organize this event. I would like to thank you very much to the audience who was very active, very lively. You brought in many questions. I enjoyed very much the discussion which we had, and I encourage you to continue with your questions and comments in our networking area, and we are still available for another hour for in-depth discussion. So thank you all, and thank you for this exciting event.